math students, this is the introduction video for our lesson on graphs, tables, and equations. This lesson is going to focus on how graphs, tables, and equations are all related and how we can connect this to the conversation we started having yesterday about solutions. So this first part is a quick review about graphing equations. If you remember how to graph this equation, that is awesome. Please pause the video and do that practice of graphing this equation. If you do not remember how to graph this equation, I will go ahead and review it now. We are going to use that formula y equals mx plus b to help us graph this equation. The m in that formula always represents your slope. So looking at this equation here, that number in front of x, that -2, that is going to represent the slope of the equation. Slope tells you the direction of the line. Lots of times we talk about slope as rise over run, so it tells me if the line's going up or down and how much it goes over. The other number in our equation, sometimes you don't see it, so if you don't see a number there, it's 0. But the second number here, that +3, that represents our y-intercept. And so that tells me where it crosses our y-axis. And that is always the first number we start with. So if I wanted to graph this equation, I would be starting on my y-axis at the number 3. And then I would go and use my slope. The slope is -2, so for rise over run, that means my rise is -2, and run, to make this a fraction, I put it over 1. So that means my line needs to go down 2 boxes and run to the right 1 box. And you can do this a couple times to find more points on the line. And after you've got a couple points, you can go ahead and draw a line through those points there. And so our graph would look something like this right here. This equation and this graph represent the same situation. When we introduce tables, a table is just a list of solutions. We started talking about solutions yesterday, and we're going to continue to talk about solutions today. So if I wanted to create a table for this equation or this graph, the table would be the same for both of them. There's 2 ways you can do it. One way you can do it is I know any pair of numbers in this table should be a solution to this equation. So for example, if I wanted x to be the number 0, it means I could take our equation, y equals -2x plus 3, and it means I can make x the number 0 to help me find the y. If I make x the number 0, the equation says y equals -2 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 3 is 3. So that means 0, 3 could be in my table. 0, 3 is a solution for the equation. The other way you could find numbers that go in your table is using this graph we just made. So another way I could find pairs of numbers for my table is by looking for what points are on the line. If a point is on the line, it means it is a solution. And so you might have noticed that point 0, 3 is this green point right here. And so I could have found that also using my graph. If I wanted to make x the number 1, I could go and do all of this math again, or I could just look on my graph and see that when x is 1, y is 1. I'm looking at this next point right there. And so I could have the point 1, 1 also in my table. If I wanted this next one in my table to be x is 2, what number would y be there? You could use the equation, you could use the graph. For me, I think the graph is the easiest. I'm looking at this point right here, and I see that y would be -1. Go ahead and do 2 more. I'll put the graph on the screen and the equation. See if you can figure out what y would be for x's 3 and 4. So when x is 3, y would be -3, and when x is 4, y would be -5. Now this graph, I think for me, is the fastest way to find those. If you did jump to a really big number, like x is 10, if I look at the graph, x is 10 is here on the graph, but the line has been cut off. I can't see it. So that's where we could use our equation as well. If I wanted to know where it is on the graph, I could just put 10 into my equation, and it would tell me it's at negative 20 plus 3. It is at negative 17. We're going to do a lot with substitution and graphing lines in this lesson, so hopefully this is a good reminder of how you graph lines and how you can use substitution to help you identify solutions. Thanks so much for watching, and you are ready for this lesson.